You ready, Jimbo?
Yes.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, Cowboys of the Osage.
Woo, Jimbo! I still can't get over that song every time I hear it.
That gives me the big head every time I hear it.
Lane did such a good job writing that.
Yep.
Props out to Lane. Good job, Lane. Lane Cosby. He's the author and writer and singer and producer of that song right there.
Yep.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's Cody over here, and as always, I have my co-host with me, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Mr. Jimbo Snively. Hey, Jimbo, good to see you. Who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's just another great day in the Osage, man. And Cody, coming to us all the way from Oakdale, California, we got the great Ace Berry with us today. Ace is a 20 times national finalist, 14 in the team roping, 6 in the bareback riding. He's the only man to win the average twice in a rough stock event and twice in a team timed event. He did it in bareback riding and team roping. And one year he did it the same year. How about that? Unbelievable.
Very unbelievable. I've never heard of such a thing,
no,
Jimbo.
Well, it's never happened before. That's why he's the only man that's ever done it.
I thought you were lying to me when you told me about it.
No. And he's in the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, Colorado Springs, the Cowboy Hall of Fame down in Oklahoma City, the Oakdale Sports Hall of Fame, probably 3 or 4 more that I don't even know about. But anyway, we're just really happy to have him join us today. And Ace, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're having me.
Hey, there might be a little background noise today. We're coming to you from the lobby today by our new exhibit with all these great artists here, Jimbo. So
okay, well,
I thought it'd be fun just sitting here today. A little different change of pace.
Yes, that'll work. Ace, a lot of people don't know it, but you were born and spent a part of your childhood just a few miles east of where we're sitting over there here at Bartlesville, Oklahoma, right?
Yes, I was born in Bartlesville, and we lived in Dewey. My father was the foreman of the Tyler Brent Ranch there in Dewey, and that was just before we left out of there when I was 5 years old. And my dad came out here to California to run a little ranch for Ben Johnson.
Right.
Him and Ben kind of grew up and cowboyed together back there.
Right.
And when Ben got out here and we got to getting bit parts in the movies and stuff, and he had this little ranch out here, and so that's how we got here, and been here ever since. I did spend 4.5 years here not long ago, back in Oklahoma again, but that didn't last long. I came right back to the old ranch I've been at for 60 years.
You probably didn't like our weather.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I can still remember there in Dewey, we'd go in the dang dirt cellar when the tornadoes would come by.
Yeah.
Hey, Ace, did you ever have the chance to go to the Dewey Roundup when you were a kid?
No, I didn't. My grandfather was there and participated in it. I think my dad did. I participated in it a time or two.
What do you know about that rodeo, Jimbo?
Well, it was at one time one of the biggest rodeos in the United States. You know, they'd truck them in here or train them in here on a train from Kansas City and all over. It really attracted all the big rodeo stars, and it was really a well-known rodeo. Called it the Dewey Roundup. And then they had the bleachers. They had a bad accident. The bleachers caved in part of it and hurt some people real bad. And I don't think they ever recovered from that. And that was it.
It was a famous rodeo, that's for sure.
Very famous, very famous. Ace, I guess moving to California, it's just natural to turn into a team roper.
Well, yeah, that's that's where it all started out here, really. Dally roping, anyway. Team tying was back in Arizona and New Mexico, but everybody team roped out here, and they still do. But now they do it everywhere, and they do a really good job at it.
Right. They're getting pretty good at it, aren't they?
Oh, my gosh. And there's not only thousands of good ones now, there's 2,000 more coming up.
Yeah.
Be pretty hard to make a living nowadays.
Yeah.
Hey, Ace, a lot of people don't know the origins of team roping. You mentioned team tying. There's a lot of team ropers that probably don't even know anything about a team tying. Can you explain to everybody what exactly team tying was?
Well, team tying, the rope was tied to the saddle horn, and the healer would come in and heel the steer and turn his horse sideways and lay the steer down, and the header would jump off his horse and run down there, and they had a tie string. They had to tie a square knot around the two back legs. And they had it in the finals there for a few years, and it was half and half. You'd tie one down one day and dally the next day.
Would the healer be tied on solid there, Ace?
The healer in the team tying, yeah. Both the header and the healer both was tied on.
Something I've been wondering about the team tying event. What if you only caught one leg? Was there any kind of penalty for that, or
no?
It just took longer on your run?
Well, it didn't really. If you knew what you were doing, it didn't take much longer. If you knew how to lay the steer down, because all it did was if you had one leg, it made the steer harder to tie because one leg was loose.
Yes, sir.
So what you did was when your header got there to tie the steer, you just give a little bit of slack to enough where the leg would come back where it was even with the other one, and it was pretty simple. But you couldn't give them too much slack, or they'd get up on you.
You know, the sport of steer roping, until the early 80s, I think there was actually 2 legal head catches in the steer rope, and you could have a front leg in it. Was a front leg ever legal in the head loop and team roping?
Yeah, it's always been illegal.
It was always been illegal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I knew there for a while, Jimbo, front leg in a steer roping loop was perfectly legal.
Well, it was the best hold you could get.
Yeah.
And the easiest on the cattle. I mean,
yeah, most of the time when I was rodeoing, they only had team roping out here in Arizona and New Mexico and California. And they never made it a standard event until 1990. So yeah, and when we did get it, they only had half the prize money, like at the finals and that stuff. It made it pretty hard,
Sure.
to compete for half the money. But we were so happy to get to do it. But now, they have it everywhere, and it's equal money. So these guys got it pretty good now.
Right. Who helped you get started team roping? Was it your dad?
Oh yeah, I grew up with a rope in my hand, and my dad, he was a calf roper. And when he got out here, and he started being a team roper like everybody else, and we roped and roped and roped, and yeah. Then John Miller, being the nephew, when he got out of school, high school, he came out here to go to junior college and live on that ranch with us, and that's how I got to roping with John Miller. He was 18 and I was 13, and they entered us at Salinas here, when Salinas at the time was the biggest team roping in the world, rodeo.
Still one of the most prestigious, I would have to say.
It is, yes, but it's changed in the fact that the arena's smaller, the score's shorter, and they have rubber on the saddle horn nowadays. When we started out there, they wouldn't allow rubber on the saddle horn. It was all cotton, and it was a 40-foot score, and the cattle were fresh, never been roped before. So there was 167 teams entered in it, and me and John won the first go around.
13 years old.
And, yeah,
I remember him talking about
Yeah.
those slick saddle horns out there. That was kind of wild, I'll bet, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, that cotton. If you knew how to wrap your saddle horn, it wasn't all that bad. You had to get really a good hold of it, and the trick was not to let it slip. If it ever slipped
Right.
with a cotton, you couldn't stop it.
Right.
It just run and run and run. Yeah, you'd see a lot of ropes snapping off the horn and a few fingers going in
I
there.
know. I'd heard one time, and you can tell me if this is true or not, but they had a board or something out there where people would put their fingers. Is that true?
No, I never heard that
Okay,
one.
okay, that's another one of them urban legends.
Did you ever put rosin on that cotton?
I've seen people do it. I didn't do it. We just kind of wrapped it a little looser, and where it could get in there and kind of make a groove,
Yes, sir. A couple
Yeah.
more things on that team tying. Did those steers have to stay tied for any certain amount of time?
No, they just had to get the square knot on them, throw their hands up, and that was it.
What if they kick loose before the judge could verify it was a square knot?
Well, I never seen one do it. The head of the flaggers was always right there, And as soon as they slapped their hands together, that was it.
What kind of strings would they use?
Oh, it was like a little 3/8 string, about 6 foot long.
Was it cotton?
No, they were nylon.
What kind of ropes were you guys using?
Oh my God! Those days, the nylon ropes, they only had one kind. It was a 7/16, and they were just big, heavy old things. Today they look like a well rope compared to what they use now.
How long would one of them boogers last you?
Oh, back to old Plymouth ropes, they'd come in a big coil, and you just measured off how long you wanted it and tie it up, and Christ, it'd last you all year. And the guys had all kinds of ways of curing them. They called it. They leave them out in the sun and bake them in the oven. And I've seen them do a lot of things to them. But once you got one where it felt good, it'd stay good. But you had to have a wet gunny sack or something, which is in a roping during the day and it was hot. You put them in there so it'd stay cool, or otherwise they'd crawl away from you.
Yeah, I've seen my grandpa put them in an oven before. And
Yeah,
then they
yeah.
stretch them to a tree with a car and just stretch all. I don't know how many feet of stretch you get out of one, but you wasn't going to
Oh
break it.
yeah. If you just stretch them, that's what I used to do. You just almost till you burn the rubber off the tires on your
Yeah,
pickup,
you couldn't break them. You just have much.
and then just slam on the brakes and leave it set for a while.
Yeah, that's the way them steel ropers used to do it too.
What were you guys traveling around in those days with your horse?
Well, most guys had a pickup and a 2-horse trailer, or I had a car and a 1-horse trailer, and eventually got a 2-horse trailer. But we pulled a lot of them. Guys pulled them with a car. They had no living quarter trailers like they do now, and
What would you
the
do?
whole.
Get to town and get a motel if you were going to be there very long, or would you camp out at the rodeo grounds? What'd you do, Ace?
Oh no, we all got a motel. Yeah.
Would you have to tell them you only had 2 people in there, but you might have had 6 people in there?
I've seen it a few times. I didn't do it.
I always had to do that growing up. Seems like my mom and dad were like, "Now you hide,"
Yeah. Split the mattress or whatever. Yeah.
Ace, who were you roping? Who were you roping with that first year when you were just 15 years old and you went to the finals?
I was up with a guy named Bud Corwin. He was a calf roper out here, and he had a one-eyed head horse, and he'd almost half head every steer he turned for me because he threw that calf loop at him, and his head horse was, when he turned off, he'd kind of run sideways because he only had one eye. and I had a really strong heel horse. And boy, when that head horse got to listening for my slack, when he'd hear that slack slam shut, he'd already be faced. He wouldn't hit the end of it too hard. And we'd get some awful good flags that way. We won about 5 or 6 rodeos in a row that year.
Well, that was quite an experience for a 15-year-old kid. You must have been on cloud 9, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I read that rodeo sports news and knew everybody name and every bucket horse in there and everything else. When I got down there, I actually got to see them. It was pretty awesome.
Right. I bet it
because
was.
all I did was just rodeo out here in Arizona.
Right.
Until I got to riding in bucking horses, and then I went back to all the big rodeos.
You got to see all the guys you'd been reading about in the rodeo news, didn't you?
Yeah. But it was a while later. It took me a while to
settle down,
learn how to ride them bucking horses, and a lot of sod busters.
Yeah. What was it like at that rodeo at Los Angeles that year?
I'll tell you what, it was kind of ridiculous as far as the fans. You could have shot a double-barrel shotgun off in there and you wouldn't hit 2 people.
Yeah. Huh.
Down there, and it wasn't a rodeo town,
Right. Wonder why they even wanted to have it out there. What they're thinking.
I don't know. They used to have at that Los Angeles Coliseum before I got to rodeo, and they had a rodeo, like a one-day rodeo there, and it was put on by the police or the sheriff's department, and they sold that thing out, but it was produced by the law in town, so they made everybody buy tickets, I think, because they sure didn't come to the national finals. I'll tell you. Yeah, I got pictures, and you can't believe there's hardly anybody in the grandstand.
Yeah.
What kind of cattle were y'all roping?
Oh, back in that day, I mean, we always roped like 700 pounders, and Todd and Rosser and them guys out here, they'd bulldog them for a year or two, and then when they got too big, they'd put them in the team roping. And by that time, you had the score. You had to wait till their horns got out of the chute before you could do anything. I mean, they'd have to turn their heads sideways almost to get out of the roping chute with big old horns. And yeah, it was a lot different nowadays. They roped as little deer.
Yeah.
Were there any big jackpot team ropings back in California? We have a lot of big jackpots back this way. Steer ropings and team ropings and calf ropings. Is there some stuff that ever transpired back?
Oh,
back
yeah.
west?
The biggest one in the world used to be right here at Oakdale, the Oakdale 10 steer. And then they had another 8 steer down at Chowchilla that was a big one. And then in Las Vegas, they had an 8 steer there that was a big one. Yeah.
How far would they score them cattle over there at that Oakdale roping?
Oh, they scored them like 25, 30 feet out there. Yeah. Yeah. And but the cattle would be big and fresh, It's all changed now.
Let's talk about Oakdale just a minute. Ace, that was kind of almost the rodeo capital of the world at one time, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was an old guy named John Bowman that lived here, and he was a world champion, steer roper and everything. And he had some relatives from Oklahoma. You've heard of the Bowmans back there. Yeah. Anyway, he lived here, and he started bringing rodeo cowboys to Oakdale and staying at his place. And back in that day, I mean, Oakdale was kind of the cattle capital of the world around here, and it was all cattle country then. And the guys would come out here in the spring, and they could day work at these ranches and then rodeo on the weekends around here. And that's kind of what got everybody coming in here. And then the team roping really got big here. And but now it's all changed. they came in here, the farmers, and planted almond trees and walnut trees and plowed up all the ground, and they're pumping the groundwater out about 2,000 gallons a minute to water those orchards, and they're going to end up paying for it one of these days soon because the wells are starting to drop and one thing another, and it's most of the Cowboys moved to Stephenville, Rodeo Cowboys anyway.
Right.
But there's still some big, really, really nice cattle ranches here where I live. It's 15 miles up in the hills out of Oakdale, and where it's the too many oak trees and hills are too steep, for all that orchard business. So there's still some really good ranches, cattle ranches here.
How far are you from the ocean?
From the ocean?
Yeah.
It's about 100 miles over there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go to the mountains or the snow, or you can go to the ocean or down to the desert or up north. About an hour, any way you want to go is a different country.
Oh. Yeah, California got the prettiest country in the world, like that, and the prettiest climate and just all that. It's just got too many people for me.
There's way too many people. There's way too many people.
One of my guys on my top 5 list for ropers, Jimbo, California guy, Kyle Lockett. One of the best pure ropers I've ever seen. God, that guy can rope just about anything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who are some of your partners you had all those years? Did you stick with one, or did you have a lot of different ones, Ace?
Oh, hell, I think I didn't realize it, but in 14 years, I think I had 8 different partners.
Yeah, well,
at the finals, yeah. But I won most of my money with Bucky Bradford and John Miller.
Yeah,
I roped with John Miller at the finals. The 2 years he won his world championships.
Right.
And the next year we won the average at the finals.
If the team roping is like it is now, would you have been the Heelan world champion that year?
I could have been. I'd really. Yeah, they just gave one championship away. They didn't do a header and healer back then.
No, I don't think they even did a header and healer till like sometime in the 90s, Jimbo.
Really?
Yeah.
It was, but it always surprised me after they did declare a header and a healer, if they did have the records, why they didn't go back and
make it right.
Name a champion on both ends. Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
What made you and John so tough, Ace? Just rope together.
Well, when we were kids there, we roped together a lot, and he knew what I liked, and I knew what he was going to do. So that's what you got to have.
Probably had good horses too, didn't you?
Oh yeah. My dad trained a lot of horses.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
How big was y'all's arena where y'all practiced, and what was a typical practice session like back then, Ace?
We had a huge arena. It was almost like a pasture plowed up, and we roped it whatever we could afford to buy. We roped whole steeds, muleys, and horn steers, just whatever. Just something to rope. That's all we cared. And John, gosh, he was the best hound cattle better than anybody in my book. I've always said if a guy couldn't heel a steer behind John Miller, you better go look for a job.
Was he the one that had was it a blue horse? I mean, they call him Blue or something.
Yeah. That horse came. The guy owned a racetrack down there in Southern California, and that colt, I think it was a silver cord colt. Anyway, he had a broken shoulder. It Ben bought him, and that colt healed up just fine. And when he was like a 3-year-old, he sent him up here to my dad and so we pretty much trained him there. And then when John got out here, he rode him, and my dad both rode him, and that horse has had a ton of money won on him. I'll tell you what, he was a good one.
I read somewhere where he got stolen once or something, didn't he?
Yeah, I was just going to say, but John went down to Cal Poly to go to college down there, and he took that horse with him. And just before he went down there, my dad had branded him with a Freeze brand, and that was when they first came out with a Freeze brand.
Yeah.
And that horse was kind of an iron blue colored horse. He kept turning grayer and grayer, all the time.
Yeah.
And it got where you couldn't hardly see that brand at all. But anyway, they stole him down there at Cal Poly, and lo and behold, 2 or 3 days later, the brand inspector caught him, and they was running through a sale up north in California here, where they sold a lot of chicken horses back in the day.
Yeah.
And luckily he saw that.
What's a chicken horse?
The ones they sell for dog food and all that stuff.
I got you.
Yeah. Luckily, the brand inspector saw that Freeze brand and got him back. Oh, man.
Boy, that'd have been something, wouldn't it?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Yeah, John, he had it on him, and I healed on him, and Daryl Camarillo healed on him, and he'd go any way he wanted to go. He was a good one.
Were you around Leo Camarillo a bunch?
Oh yeah, we kind of started out in junior rodeo at the same time. Gerald and Leo and me were all the same age. Leo was a year older.
Well, that sounds like a tough junior rodeo.
Yeah, so.
Chase Berry, Leo Camarillo, Gerald Camarillo. Oh,
but I was.
You better rope good.
Yeah.
I was in the PRCA 6 years before they joined. Yeah.
What was it like to make the finals in Oklahoma City? What was the atmosphere like? How early did you have to get there? Did you run the steers through a week ahead of time? I don't know what was it like to do the finals in Oklahoma City.
Oh no, they just ran them through, for like a day before they started, and that was about it. Yeah, it was a lot. I say more laid back, old timer rodeo. I mean, the Cowboys are contestants to get out, alongside the fence and inside the arena and cheering one another on and stuff. And you can't do that nowadays. They'll fine you. You don't get out of the arena in a certain amount of time after you compete. It was just more laid back in that day. I mean, it's the whole atmosphere has changed so much because there's so much money, and it's a big business now. With all the sponsors and the corporations in there and everything. I don't know. I'm just old school. I liked it the old way better.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what it was like there. What did everybody do after the rodeo? Did they just go home and go to bed then, or?
Oh hell no!
Because they got Las Vegas now, so I know.
No, everybody would go have a good time and one thing and another. But what used to get me is there was always a few cowboys that couldn't even ride a saddle horse, and the guys are in the grand entry, they'd get excused because they couldn't ride a saddle horse.
They still have one fall off every once in a while now.
Oh, I know it. Yeah,
out in Vegas.
Yeah, that's what amazes me so much about this guy, Jimbo. Is I'm not even saying anything bad about bareback riders, but a lot of times they can't swing a rope and ride their horse at the same time. Right. They're definitely dedicated to the bareback riding end of the rodeo. So it's just so strange that a guy could make the finals bareback riding, team roping, and win the average in both events same year.
Twice. It was the same year and then twice.
It seemed like it was normal to him though, because Phil Lyon did it the same year.
Yeah,
the bull riding and calf roping.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and there's a funny story about that too. If you want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
I did it first, because my events were first.
Right.
And anyway, so Phil Line, he won the calf roping, and then the bull riding was the last event. And he rode his bull, and Mel Lambert was an announcer, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Line just became the first man to ever win a ride in a timed event, 2 events at the Nashville Finals." And they had him walk out there in the arena, and they gave him a standing ovation. And C.R. Boucher was standing there in front of the buck and shoots by the announcer stand. And he said, "Well, Ace Berry's already done it." And the guy said, and old Mel Lambert said, "Oh, Ace Berry did it too." That was it.
Right. How close did you come to winning the all-around championship?
Well, I never came close. Maybe 6th or so, because, like I told you to start with, the team roping was only at a few rodeos. They didn't have all the big rodeos. They didn't have team roping in those days. So I just rode the bareback horses, and I only got to have my second event out here in California and Arizona.
Did you ever tie any steers down?
I entered it once at Pendleton, and it was pretty ugly.
Well, I want to clear something up right off the bat about your bareback riding. There's an urban legend floating around here that Buck Rutherford helped you get on your first bareback horse. Is there any truth to that?
No, there's no truth at all.
It was supposed to have even been a mule or something. I can't remember. It was a strange story.
Yeah, I've read that story someplace before, but no, there's nothing true about it.
Well, who did help you? Who did help you with your riding, Ace?
Well, when I first started, Sonny Turman.
Yeah, world champion bareback rider, wasn't he?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he was all around cowboy too.
Yeah. Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't win the all around, but I mean he
Oh yeah, right. He could do more.
All kinds of events, and he got me started. And
did he come down there to Oakdale? Is that where you got with him? Or?
Yeah, he lived here in Oakdale.
Okay.
Yeah, he was from Oregon, and then he moved down here to Oakdale and cowboyed on these ranches and stuff around here. And once I got going a few years and got where I could ride one, Jim Houston, you know who he is.
Yeah,
he was a two-time world champion, and he made riggins. He had a shop down in Burke Burnett, Texas. He picked me up and made me a rigging, and he hauled me and entered me for half and sponsored me at those big winter rodeos down there. And 1 year, and he's the one that really got me going. Yeah.
I read somewhere that you only went, the most rodeos you ever went to was like 65 or something. Is that right?
Yeah. I was always coming home to the ranch here.
Yeah. And you could rodeo. You could go team roping there on the weekends, couldn't you? From the ranch, probably there in California.
Well, yeah, I could rodeo. One time California had more rodeos than Texas did.
Oh yeah, so you could ride broncs and team rope pretty good out of California.
Yeah, and stay right here, and I'd go to all those big winter rodeos, and usually by spring, I'd pretty much have the finals almost made,
Right.
And then I'd just come home and stay home here and work at the ranch and go on the weekends here in California. Work 2 events here.
What kind of equipment did you have in the bareback riding back then, Ace?
It's a lot different than they got now, I'll tell you for sure. We had to hang on and ride the horse, Nowadays they just kind of ride the rigging, They're so bind in there, and they got braces all over, and even wear a mouthpiece. I see.
Did you ever wear any kind of protective vest or anything like that?
Oh, heck no. No, we had none of that stuff.
Well, they put their hand in that thing now. They can't hardly get out of it. Ace, did you do that?
Oh, heck no. They wouldn't let you. they even had real strict rules on that handhold business. And the gloves, when you put your hand in the rigging, you couldn't have any kind of a wrinkle in your glove at all. Now they sew a piece inside of it, and I mean they're just wedged in there. It's incredible. Yeah, old Sonny Terman, excuse my language, but when I first started, he said, "Don't tie your ass on something you can't ride."
Yeah.
Hey, Ace, you said that first guy used to haul you around and enter you for half. I was reading or listening to a book here a while back, and it seems like it might have been common practice back then for kind of a veteran rodeo guy to put a younger guy under his wing and enter him and take some of his money that way, but show him the ropes on top of it. Was that common practice back then?
It was pretty common, yeah. You know, say they saw somebody showed a little potential, and you know they liked them. They do exactly that. And it sure helped a lot of people.
Well, yeah, it helped the guys get down the road too and enter the next rodeo.
Right. I mean, oh yeah. And back then the judging was a little different too. You know, you kind of had to earn your way. You didn't just go out there and they gave you a bunch of points like they do nowadays.
You kind of had to make a name for yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. And you didn't see those big scores like they give them 80-point rides away like Christmas cards nowadays. You know, but I've seen the score system change a couple of times in my career. You know, and but it's what it is.
How did it change, Ace?
They changed it by the numbers that they used. You know. For the rider and for the horse, they had a different number system.
I see.
And yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, it's changed so much. It's pretty. I will say one thing about the bareback riding and the bronc riding. They have more good horses that you can win on.
Right.
Than they did back in the day, simply because they have all these breeding programs nowadays, and the rank ones back in the old days were just as rank as the rank ones nowadays, but there just wasn't as many of them.
Right.
And and the bull riding, my God, they got that breeding program on those bulls, unbelievable.
Yeah, we did one with Matt Austin the other day, and he said they're breeding them bulls. They need to start breeding better cowboys.
Yeah. I don't understand it, but I never was much of a bull riding fan anyway. I never dreamed of seeing a cowboy ride a bull out across the pasture to go do a day's work.
No, we have a motto here on the podcast that when they get too big to ride or get too big to rope, we eat them.
Yeah, there you go.
We don't even think about riding them.
Did you ever get to be around Casey Tibbs much?
You know, I was around Casey. He was already retired, but he would come around a few of Andy Arrighi's rodeos down, a stock contractor down in Southern California, and he had a little saddle bronc horse called Johnny Cake, and he was just so nice, a little horse. He did jump, kick, and make a little circle around in front of the chutes. And old Casey would do an exhibition on him, just spur the hell out of him, jerk his hat off, and fan him and everything. And then he'd step off and pull him around with a bronc rein and hand it to the pickup man. He was a character, that guy.
Yeah, he was a showman too, wasn't he? I mean.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Did you ever get to see his big purple Cadillac?
No, I didn't. No, I was way after that. I heard a lot of stories about him. Yeah.
Well, what did you judge the first bareback riding at the first NFR in Vegas?
I did. The first year they had it there, I judged the bareback riding, and the second year I flagged the team up.
Whoa.
It's amazing.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, that's a perfection's job. You know, it's not fun. I'll guarantee you.
What'd you think of the rodeo at Vegas?
You can see. I mean, it was with the money and what was coming along. You can see where it was going to be. You know, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and there's no telling where it's going to stop. You know, if it does. But it was outstanding to have it there, and they fill that grandstand up every night. You know, I mean, it's in a small arena like that where everybody's kind of right on top of the action. You know, and it was great. But I still like the old Oklahoma City one.
Yeah,
that was the fun one. That was a cowboy. Now that was a cowboy rodeo there. And as a matter of fact, the Cowboys did run the national finals. That was their rodeo. They picked their own judges. They picked their pickup men. They picked everything. Gave them the whole 9 yards. And after I judged the 85 there in Vegas, the director of the PRCA judge, he said, "This is the last year that the Cowboys are going to get to pick their judges." I take that back. No, it was 86. He said, "This is the last year that the Cowboys get to pick their judges." I forget who was Winston or one of them was sponsoring the judging program. And they said if they didn't use all of their judges at the finals, they was going to pull out. So that was the end of the Cowboys making whoever they want, you know. And in my opinion, which doesn't count for much, but those pro officials they're good officials, but they judge too much. And they get people categorized in their mind, and the horses, you know. But like with the finals, when they got to pick their judges, they could pick somebody that hadn't been to a rodeo who didn't know any of the horses, you know. They just mark down what they see. And I thought it was better that way.
Right.
Because they weren't opinionated before they got there, you know.
Right.
They see a draw and they'd say, "Well, that's probably first, second, third right there."
Right. Yeah, I never knew how a judge could keep from subconsciously favoring a champion or something. I mean, that's something you just have trouble. You'd have to guard against all the time. You know, having that in the back of your mind, and that's a tough job, like you said.
Oh yeah, it is. It's very thankless job.
Well,
Yeah.
I can only imagine how tough it is to judge the team roping out there, Jimbo. Stuff's happening so fast. Things happen there that don't happen anywhere. There's a lot at stake. What's it like to judge the team roping out there, Ace?
Well, you got to take control right away. I mean, when I judged the finals or flagged the finals back there, I called all the healers into the locker room, and I explained to them what I considered a crossfire. And I said, "There's no gray line. It's either right or wrong, and don't try me because I'm the one that invented it." And I said, "You know, if you don't think I won't flag you out, just try me." And nobody did. Yeah.
Would you ever around Buddy Lytle much?
Buddy Lytle, yes, he was a judge there at the finals. One of the years I was a really, really good judge and a good flagger and a good guy, a really good guy.
For some reason, I always got stuck. I was talking to him when I was growing up all the time. He'd come around. Me and him had a lot of conversations. Yep. Me and Buddy Lytle, and I'd ask him about this or that on the steer roping rules.
Uh-huh.
And
yeah,
he just explained them right to me.
Yeah, he was an excellent judge.
Going back to 1972 for a minute, Ace, that was the last year they had team tying at Oklahoma City or at the finals. And I think you won that last. You and I guess Johnny Miller won that last go around in the team tying that they ever had.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Did you hate to see it go? You think that was a mistake, or you wish they were still doing half of them team tying? Or
Well, I enjoyed doing it, but I don't know if it looked that great to the audience.
Right.
And I think nowadays they're going to have to really, really clean up the calf roping.
Yeah.
Roping these little bitty calves, it's pathetic, in my opinion. And I've seen the steer roping, like Cheyenne and that, them poor little weak steers with their hip bones sticking up and their backbones. And I mean, there's nobody likes to see that.
That's not a good look.
And no, and the way the Humane Society is out here in California and around, boy, they see that on TV and they just go berserk,
Right. They're trying to outlaw. There's some bills. I mean, there's a little bit of talk of trying to outlaw rodeo in California, isn't there?
They did over in about a week or 2 weeks ago. They passed a bill in Alameda County outlawing it, and you couldn't even wear a pair of spurs if you're riding a horse. They'll arrest you. But that's the kind of people, and it'll go from Alameda County, which is by San Francisco.
Right.
And it'll go down to L.A. next. You watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that stuff spreads out here like wildfire. But anyway, I think those guys roping those little calves and tripping those little bitty steers are just shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, it may be. Ace, if you were starting a Mount Rushmore team ropers, need four names, who would you put on it?
If I was what? I couldn't hear you there.
Going to build a Mount Rushmore of team ropers?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Need four names. Who would you put on it?
Oh, I would put John Miller. I would put Jimmy Rodriguez. I would put Leo Camarillo and Gerald Camarillo on it.
Okay.
What about Jake and Clay?
Jake and Clay, yes, they came along in a different era,
Yes.
And but well, I think Clay O'Brien is. I just forgot about Clay. I think he's probably the best healer I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a tough to do. We do that with people all the time on here, different events, and most of the time they can name two or three, but it's hard to finish it out. But you did yours.
He rattled four right off.
You did the best of anybody as far as coming up with four names the quickest.
What about bareback riders? If we were going to do a Mount Rushmore of bareback riders, Ace.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Sonny Terman would be first on my list, and let's see, Gary Tucker, and probably Joe Alexander, and there's the fourth one. I don't know. That'd be a big toss up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that rode really good. Jim Houston, did I say Jim?
No, you didn't say him.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Most people stumble with this and can't ever come up with four, but you did better than anybody.
And there's a lot to pick from.
Oh, I know.
It depends on what
about
area.
Bruce Ford? What about Bruce Ford on that? He could go on there.
Bruce Ford, yeah.
I can see his big old head on there.
Yeah.
Marvin Garrett. Boy, that guy could ride good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Jim Shoulders. He could ride a bareback horse pretty good.
Yeah. Marvin Garrett, I didn't really. I shouldn't say I didn't like his style. That was the style that he had, and he made it work. But I like the guys that rode a little more, setting up a little bit straighter, and didn't get to hanging over on the side and flopping and popping like a lot of them do now. They're starting to come around a little better and ride them a little more. like that Jess Pope, that new kid riding.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Huh?
I said he's a good one.
Yes, he kind of rides old school. You know, he kind of steps up a little straighter, and yeah, there's some good bareback riders. But
What do you think about Rocker Steiner?
I wish you hadn't asked me that.
Well, I guess that says everything we need to know.
Yeah.
He needs a haircut, I guess, is what he's going to say.
Let's skip that question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You know who's an old school bareback rider that had a long career? Clint Corey. He had kind of an old school style.
Oh yes, Clint was an excellent bareback rider. And
You know who was my favorite bareback rider? Larry Sandvik. He was always my favorite. Not a world champion, but he was always my favorite personality in the bareback riding. On top of just his style.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we differ. Right there, I would have to say he's the guy that ruined the bareback riding.
Okay.
He's the one that came up with them high lift rigging that they use now, and locking their hand in there and just hanging on the side and clubbing them with one foot.
Shows you how much I know about bareback riding.
Yeah. I mean, but that's he's the one that changed all the style right there.
Maybe it was just the woolly chaps. I couldn't get. I like those. That's the main thing. I like them woolly chaps.
Yeah.
I saw some old on YouTube the other day. Cheyenne, I think it was a short goat Cheyenne, 1961, and it just showed the bareback riding it. It just doesn't look anything like what they're doing today.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the style has changed 3-4 times that I know of. Stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Buck Rutherford and the guys were bigger. That was one difference. They were bigger guys, but they rode more upright. It just didn't even resemble what they're doing today.
Yeah, well, in those riggings that they used in those days, they called them noodles because they were just 2 pieces of rawhide and 2 pieces of leather. And
we have Buck Rutherford's old one back here. It's just leather. There's no rawhide in it whatsoever, I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what they call them nowadays, noodles. You ride with an old noodle. Yeah, but it's all changes. And
what about
most of the guys?
Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask you about the changes you've seen in the team roping.
Holy moly! How would you like to be trying to team rope for a living right now, Jimbo?
I wouldn't.
Oh,
I can't throw my rope that far. My rope wasn't even that long.
Well, what gets me about the tiny events nowadays, I've been in all those big arenas, these rodeos, and they have a little bitty short score, and like you say, they're swinging in the box and throwing as soon as the neck rope comes off. And I don't know why in hell they don't score the cattle out there where the guys have to ride their horse and run down the middle arena to rope their animal.
I know it.
It makes no sense to me.
Well, it's not to me. It's just not good watching. I grew up in a steer roping family where you had to get a throw and
ride your horse a little bit.
Yeah, ride your horse. It just takes the cowboy out of it. You're just throwing your rope. Who can throw the rope the farthest?
The one year there at the finals, I think me and Buddy both was watching the score line, and in the calf rope, and this guy, he roped his calf so quick that his horse backed up halfway into the box.
Right.
And I said, why don't you just put the damn saddle on the fence here? And everybody just throw off of the saddle. You don't have to ride your horse.
Well, I know it. Calgary the same way. That big old arena up there at Calgary, they don't. It's just almost lap and tap, and it's just a time contest more than anything else. You might as well just stake him out and run down the rope in time, see who's the fastest.
Well, that Calgary has sure changed a lot since I was there last spell.
Did you ever win it? Win it, Ace?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
How big a bonus were they giving?
What's that?
How big was the bonus they were giving when you won it, Ace?
How big was the prize?
Yes, sir.
I won the first go around, and I think I placed in the second one down the list of ways, and then I won the short round in the average and won $4,000.
Those guys are getting checks for what, $100,000 to win each event this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the same. All those rodeos, like Pendleton, I won it twice, and I think the most I 40% of them both times I won Pendleton.
Wow.
And won $1,400 each time.
What's it like to ride a bucking horse in Pendleton? The setup there's a little bit different than most places, because on a bareback horse, do they take a run on that dirt and then start bucking when they hit the grass, or what? How's that typically
they're all
work
different.
out?
They're all different, but it's the first year I won it. I had in the finals there. I was way in the lead, and I had a horse called Necklace, and he was like a 4 or 5 time bareback horse of Canada and everywhere. And anyway, he started bucking right there and right out of the chute in the dirt. And about 3 jumps in there, and it's all I remember, because after the whistle blowed, it jerked the rigging out of my hand. I hit on the back of my head out there on that grass and did the chicken. I didn't know where I was at for a while. I said, somebody come up there and I said, "You okay?" And I said, "Did I make the whistle?" And they said, "Hell yeah, you made the whistle. You wouldn't have let us go around there." And I didn't even know what the hell was on. But I know it's awful hard. That grass.
Oh, I imagine.
I bet it is.
It's hard ground out there.
I gotta tell you a Calgary story. One of the first times I went up there, they had all their own bucking horses they raised, and sometimes those horses they only see a man once a year, and they'd haul them in there and just spray paint a number on them. And Winston Brewster was the arena director, and I got on 6 re-rides that one day. And I said, "Winston, man, you got anything to buck around here?" He said, "You just keep nodding your head." I said, "Just keep nodding your head." And he said, "We'll find one in a minute." And the next one, they had to drag me out of the way to shut the gate. He rode up there and he said, "How'd you like that one?"
Where were the toughest broncs at when you were coming up? Were they up north in Canada, or were they from the Dakotas, or
the toughest bronc riders?
Yeah, all the toughest broncs. Where did they come from back when you were riding?
Well, Harry Vold and those guys up there, they had some awfully good horses, bucking horses, and they had a lot of them big feather-legged, crossbred horses, cold-blooded, and they were real broncs, and if you got down here in the States, a lot of them were just saddle horses. They went to bucking,
Renegades?
What's that?
Were they just renegade saddle horses, or a lot of them from down here?
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times they go to the rodeo, and there'd be some of the ranchers would bring one in, to try him out and try to sell him, And but up there, I mean, they had some in Dakotas too, but up there in Canada, they damn sure mount you.
Did you ever get a ride at Madison Square Garden?
Did I?
Yes, sir.
Oh no, that was way before my time.
Gotcha.
I never made the finals till I was 20 years old, 67. I started riding them when I was 15, and I rode them for 15 years.
That's a pretty long time, really, for be riding horses.
What's the worst injury you ever rode with?
Worst injury?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I had to break my arm while I was riding, and I've had a few injuries, but luckily nothing really bad.
Did you keep entering with a broken arm?
No. I laid it off a year before I started back. But it broke right when I was riding. And just so much pressure on it, the big bone just broke.
Man.
I used to tape my wrist, and the only reason I taped my wrist is because I tied my glove on real tight, and my arm broke right on the tape line. That was a horrible feeling, I'll tell you for sure.
What was the funnest rodeo, the rodeo you look forward to entering every year?
Well, I'd have to say Pendleton and Salinas, because they're like kind of like maybe Cheyenne in there, like third, because they were big cowboy rodeos. There wasn't a little pin and all that stuff. You had to be a little cowboy. You had to ride your horse and pull your hat down.
Yeah, that's 3 big time rodeos right there, Jimbo. For sure. I still like to watch Salinas on TV, and Pendleton, because they kept pretty much. It's changed a little, but they've tried to keep the tradition the best they can, and it's pretty good watching on TV. I know. Yeah, I've always been interested in those types of rodeos too, just because they didn't have steer open, and we never got to go, and they always really interested me. Like the Salinas rodeo. Right. What was the rodeo like up there in San Francisco?
The Cow Palace. The Cow Palace used to be one of the biggest ones out here. It was an awesome rodeo at one time because it was the last rodeo that counted for the national finals standings. And so all the Cowboys would be here, and it was really good, but it's nothing now. I don't even know if they're going to have it again. Really? Yeah, it's just like I say. It's San Francisco and LA. They're getting where they're not going to have any rodeo events around there.
What do you think about the team roping horse market these days?
Oh my God! I've been looking for 2 years trying to replace my old horse. And I can't even come close to buying one.
I saw one on an auction the other day bring $250,000, Jimbo. Wow. And that's by far not the most expensive one being sold, for sure. I think it's common practice, $75,000 to $100,000 for a pretty good one now.
Oh yeah, oh hell yeah.
Might not even get a good one bought for that nowadays. I don't know.
Hell, you can't hardly buy a prospect around here anymore for less than 15,000, 20,000. Just not one good enough to go jackpot on. It's pretty crazy.
You told me the other night on the phone that your old horse came from here around this area.
Yeah, I came from Dewey, right there where I used to live. Yeah. Yeah.
Who sold the Braden sold that to you, maybe?
Well, Tanner Braden's grandfather, I think, is the one that raised the horse.
Yeah, Frank Braden.
And Tanner, I think Tanner's the one that broke him. And Tanner and Jake Long used to both ride him. And then I think Tanner sold him to Jake, and Jake hauled him for. Well, Jake told me he hauled him all through college. He hauled him for 5 years in his first year out of college, and then he sold him back to Tanner, and then Tanner sold him to another kid there in Oklahoma, and then I bought him when I saw him there. He was 15 then, and he's 22 this year, and I just roped 6 steers on him yesterday morning, and he's still firing on all cylinders. He's a tough little birder, and God, he's one of the best ones that I can't even find one close to him.
I was reading somewhere that going back to that team time a minute, that you guys would sometimes switch horses when you went to team time. What was the thought behind that? I mean, the horse that was heading before might be a heeling the next time or something in the team time.
Well, some of those Dally horses, they never get team tied on, so they didn't understand turning out of there, jerking the steer down. They try to keep them straight.
I see.
And the Dally roping,
Who's the first guy you saw really start throwing some rope not running right up there and taking a good shot.
Well, HP Evans, he was the master.
Yeah. Somebody else told us that the other day. I forget who it was.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to rope with HP next weekend.
I think it might have been Bob Scott. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, I bet it was Bob. Yeah. Yeah. The old HP, he had a real good looking paint horse. You remember him? I think his dad bought him there in Oklahoma someplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to watch him on the finals.
Yeah, he showed up there at the finals on that paint horse. Man, I'm telling you what, they won a lot of money.
Hey, Ace, when the heck did everyone wisen up and start cutting up some old inner tubes to put on their saddle horn to stop the rope?
Well, they didn't take them long because a lot of guys couldn't handle that cotton. But the only rodeo that had that was Salinas. And they had it maybe, well, like I said, I was 13 the first year I went. They probably had it for 3 more years, and then they let them use the rubber on the horn from then on.
Oh, it was mandatory to use the cotton on the saddle horn.
Yeah, you could not use any rubber at all.
That'd be good if they went back to that there at that one rodeo. I'd like to watch that.
I'll tell you what, they wouldn't be ducking off as fast as they are nowadays.
Well, they'd make sure they had a good dally anyway. I don't think it'd bother Corey Pesca, though, on the back end. I think he could do it pretty quick. What do you think about these healers nowadays, Ace? Holy moly. These guys it's pretty incredible. They're pulling off shots that don't even seem humanly possible sometimes.
Right. Yeah, it's just getting tougher and tougher every year. And like I said before, there's 1,000 more kids coming up behind them. It's going to be just as good, if not better.
Yeah, I have noticed in the last, 10, 15 years, Jimbo, there's a bunch of young kids coming on like I've never seen before. Their parents are taking them right out of school, and they're taking their roping career real serious at a young age.
Right.
And a lot of these kids can really rope good, it looks like.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure. They homeschool them now, and that's all they do is rope. Yeah.
Yep, don't get in a game of pig with some of these kids, Jimbo. I learned my lesson.
Well, nowadays they have so many aids to help them with the videos and all the schools that people have, and all these roping dummies, that they can pull around on a sled or whatever.
Yeah, I really thought that a lot of these training aids were a bunch of baloney when I first started seeing them for some reason, Jimbo. Mm-hmm. But I'll be darned, they're really good. They're really good to learn the rope. They're really good to train a horse on, to get one started. You can cut a lot of corners pretty quick on them.
Yeah.
I'll be danged, they were a lot better than I would have ever anticipated, especially the ones they got now.
You can just scroll through YouTube right now, and the little videos, somebody will be swinging a rope and telling you where to put your tip and where your elbow needs to be. I mean, it's just totally different, the information out there now.
There's a guy, one of the best horn ropers I've ever seen, JoJo Lamond, and that guy can rope from real close, or anywhere he just decides to get good and ready to rope him. It seems like he can and will rope him every time. There's so many great ropers out there now.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yes, there is. It looks like a pretty tough way to make a living to me.
If you got a good supply of good horses, and maybe you're just getting a good horse or two going every year and selling them, that might be the way to go. I don't know.
Yeah. It'd be pretty hard to keep them going the way they rope nowadays. Ducking off.
Yeah, surely they got to go back and practice on them the right way every now and then just to keep them getting a throw. Who knows?
Yeah, that's why I'd like to see them move that score out there and make them ride their horse up there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely better. It's all good watching, but definitely when you up the horsemanship and the roping and the skill of the roping a little bit, it's definitely even better watching for sure.
Yes, it is.
Well, what do you think about these Cowboys now that actually have big fan followings with the Cowboy channel and things like that? It looks like it might be getting better for the rodeo cowboy than it was in the earlier days. with the sponsorships.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it's unbelievable, and I'm glad for them. I mean, that's compared to all the other sports, they're still way behind.
Sure,
but it's getting better all the time for them.
Well, it looks like the bull riders are leading the charge on all the rodeo's behalf, and at least one event's getting pretty big anyway.
Yeah, that PBR has been a game changer.
That's a pretty small window to make a living right there. That bull ride.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Looks like a guy can team rope for quite a while now. If they don't move your number where you couldn't rope with anybody.
Yeah.
Well, Jimbo, you got anything else for Ace today?
Well, we just, golly, want to sure thank him for coming on, and helping us keep this old history alive. That's what we're all about here at the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum and in these podcasts, because you guys pave the way for the guys that are reaping the benefits now on the Cowboy Channel and all that. And we just really appreciate you helping us tell these old stories. And I'm sure people that'll hear that podcast will really appreciate you too, Ace. And we still think we still claim you as an Okie too. I think I told you that, but you're still Okie to us.
That's okay. Well,
like
thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Hey, Ace, how many other people made the bareback riding finals and a timed event in the finals? Anybody?
I know one kid. He didn't do it the same year. He did it different years. Was Gary Hempstead out here in California?
Okay.
He made the bareback run one year, and then he roped in the team rope in there one year with Joe Murray, I think it was. I'm not sure.
So just you and one other person's ever done that? Nobody the same year but you?
Yep.
Not that I know. I don't think so.
Nobody's won the average.
That's just incredible. That's incredible to me. So
yeah.
Well, Mr. Barry, we sure appreciate you coming on today, taking time out of your busy day on your 10,000 acre ranch in the middle of California. Who would have thought anything like that even existed nowadays? But
well, I wished I owned it, but I don't. I just live here.
Yeah. Well, sounds like a great place to live.
It is. Yeah, there's too many people, like you said.
Well, you ever get back towards Oklahoma, come see us.
I sure will. And thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. It's been a privilege. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ace.
You bet. Bye.
All right, Jimbo. That was a good one, wasn't it?
Oh, great one.
What a guy.
Oh,
what a career.
What a career. What a nice guy.
Holy moly. I think that's going to surprise a lot of people because as great as Rocker Steiner is now, I don't see him making the team roping national finals anytime soon.
No. Or Jesse Pope or any of those guys.
Anybody. And to win the average,
and then to win the average twice.
It's an unbelievable story to me. He must be one heck of a cowboy.
Got to be.
One of the best ever.
All-time greats. Got to be.
For sure. All right, everyone. This has been another great episode. See y'all next week.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.